Travis, and you're watching Curious Tangents. And recently, I started going to the gym 5 days a week at 6 a.m., which you could say required a lot of willpower. I have also been attempting to learn how to code, which required so much willpower that I procrastinated for a really long time. This got me wondering, how is it that willpower works, and is it even effective? So I went through a lot of books and psychology studies, and well, it's weird. I decided to do my research in a kind of chronological way, just for the fun of it. So the very first thing that I found were psychologists citing things and studies on ego depletion. I've studied this before, but it's been a few years. Now, immediately, I read this and said, that sounds like a bunch of Freudian garbage, but it's actually a pretty reasonable and, most of all, testable idea. It's the idea that willpower is a limited cognitive resource. As you use it, you will eventually need time to replenish it. When you use it repeatedly, it grows stronger, but again, eventually exhaust. Pretty much like a muscle. Today, this idea is pretty contested. Many people go as far as saying that willpower is an unlimited resource, and that it works a lot like an emotion. Another reason why willpower is now thought to be unlimited is because in those original studies, when people were given lemonade after being willpower exhausted or ego depleted, they were then able to use more willpower, the idea being that the glucose gave their brains more energy. Today we know that resisting challenge or even thinking harder doesn't actually make your brain use more sugar or energy. Simply giving a brain more information to process or tasks to do doesn't create a meaningful difference in the amount of energy that your brain is actually using. Your brain isn't a muscle, it doesn't work that way. It's really an organ. A mind that does calculus for an hour will burn about 4 more calories than a mind that just daydreams. What I've said over the past 2 minutes or so is true to the best of our scientific knowledge. However, it's also surface level. There is more going on than simply your brain doesn't burn more energy. What is actually happening is that the decisions that you make throughout your day change the biochemistry of your body. Imagine you have a habit of playing Minecraft and avoiding responsibility. By the way, join my Minecraft server through my Discord. Also, follow me other places, just not in real life. Let's say that one day, instead of playing Minecraft, you decide to put Minecraft down so that you can learn how to code and, I don't know, build your own Minecraft. You would be breaking a habit that's both ingrained and immediately rewards you in favor of something that is a long-term investment. This decision might cause a bit of immediate distress, the discomfort that you feel choosing to do something that's unusual. An even better example might be choosing salad and chicken over cheesecake, because cheesecake has the two things in it that really drive your brain wild in terms of food: high amounts of sugar and fat. Resisting in either scenario is gonna cause a bit of pain. And the biochemistry of a person who's in distress is different from the biochemistry of a person who does what they do normally. The real difference is in the parts of your brain that your body chooses to send energy to. We're going to need to explain just a little bit about how a brain evolves over time. I would assume that most people are under the assumption that as a species changes over time, its brain also has complete remodels. That is rarely the case. Your brain isn't much different from the brains of your deep ancestors. It's just got a few more things slapped on top, rather than just change your brain from the midbrain, or sometimes in this context referred to as your reptilian brain, which is horribly inaccurate. Your brain just slaps new things on top of the old things. Evolution essentially says, does the animal already have a cortex? Then maybe it would do even better with a neocortex. But back to the point, your prefrontal cortex is a really big part of you making long-term decisions, especially when those decisions also involve avoiding short-term gratification. This can be a bit distressing, and when distressed, the brain decreases energy and activity in the prefrontal cortex in favor of areas more associated with short-term gratification. Ironically, this means that the more long-term decisions that you make in a short time period, the less likely you are to be able to continue making those decisions. It's also part of the reason why distress can make you crave fatty or sugary foods, and comforting things like video games. There's an argument that this is actually adaptive. If a creature were only making long-term decisions, well, that wouldn't make much sense because it would need to stay alive in the short term in order to see the reward of those long-term choices. Of course, your brain doesn't intuitively know what the right ratio of decisions is, it just knows that the more long-term decisions it's going to make now, the less it's going to make later. Not because it's burning through all of your body's energy, but because the part of it that makes long-term decisions has less available energy. More recently, there's been claims that willpower works more like an emotion, like joy or sadness. Some have used this again to argue that willpower is unlimited, like your emotions, which is weird, because your emotions, your experience of happiness, sadness, or anger are also limited. Happiness, sadness, excitement, anger, any emotion come and go and ebb and flow with the events of one's life, which is pretty much the same way that willpower seems to work. Now, I'm actually not trying to argue that ego depletion was the correct way that willpower works. When looking into the studies that were done on that, you'll see some pretty obvious flaws. Instead, I'm mostly trying to say that we don't know exactly how willpower works, and part of that might be that we just haven't figured out yet, but it might also be that it's just not that pressing of a question. If you're looking into willpower, you probably want to make some sort of change in your life, a positive change, and to do that, you've decided that you need more willpower. But most high performers and people who work with high performers know that they're not just willing themselves into success. Willpower is just not that big of a deal. People who are very successful at something very rarely are the ones who are willing themselves into doing it repeatedly. Me getting up early to go to the gym every morning didn't take that much willpower because it was a self-reinforcing loop. First, the morning is actually my favorite time of day. It's something I already enjoy. Also, going to the gym lets me interact with people, which I find rewarding, especially because those people presumably already have one of the same interests that I do, fitness. On top of this, once you see the results of having gone to the gym, it's all just one feedback loop of positive actions. Willpower isn't the answer, it's really just one piece of a bigger puzzle. What really drives change are sustainable and reinforcing feedback loops, whether that be a vicious cycle or a victorious one. I'll make a video on that soon, but until then, thanks for watching, and special thanks to the patrons who make content like this possible.